If you want to get promoted, very easy. Just look at what the person who is on that level is doing, and then promote yourself and start
Doing what they
operating at
do.
that level. Yeah, you get promoted to the level you're already operating at. Not It's not like you are operating at this level and they say, oh, we need to promote him, he's doing really well, and they promote you. No, it's that you're already operating at that level and they're like, let's make the what he's already doing match what we say he's doing. Does that make sense? Yeah, we're live now.
We're live. I thought we're recording now. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, we're recording now. That not live, but yeah.
All right. Odie, last time we recorded, we have an unpublished episode on chess, and it was an experimentation on geeking out. Still technical when it comes to strategy and tactics, but that's the last time we recorded, and that was like last week. But we have a new face, Lionel. I discovered him on his YouTube channel. What's the name of your YouTube channel?
Lionel the Builder.
Lionel the Builder. So the agenda, and hopefully I can stay on topic, is going to be the state of junior developers. Hence, me catching a glimpse of Lionel's channel and saying, hey, our tech consumption channel is more geared towards the business of software engineering, and it's more like business focused in tech, with emphasis on more. At least that's what the vision was. But a lot of our viewers, they tend to be more senior. They tend to be like higher up in the ladder of their career. And what Odie and I had wanted to, ultimately one of our objectives is to get more viewers and to be able to tap into mainstream without having to necessarily discuss things that we're not really interested about, right? Like, like little tutorials on Java, or like we're not really interested in that when it comes to a beginner level. But I think we enjoy talking and meeting people. And so, make long story short, I know I'm talking a lot, is the tech market is very challenging, and that's me being nice, politically correct. And I think the episode that I caught from you, Lionel, was you were talking about some of the challenges, or maybe how difficult it was as a junior developer in obtaining opportunities. And so I'll just set the agenda right there, the state of junior developers. Let me just bring a little caveat to this. So I promise you this isn't about F#. But remember when I said like tactics and strategy? It's especially if the context is junior developers, is you can choose to develop your experience as a software engineer, software developer with a mainstream language. But guess what? The consequence is going to be there's always going to be way more seniors. People are going to be, there's so many more people that are more advanced to you based on the skill set that you chose to earn your living, to earn your lifestyle. Or strategically, I chose F#. Of course, I was borderline senior by then. This is an opportunity based on the research that I've done that in T-minus 36 months, I could position myself to be the technical authority in Florida, the state of Florida, in which I could position myself to earn a higher hourly rate because I'm above my competition, if that. So, I mean, again, maybe that's a discussion for another episode, but strategically choosing the tools that you have that aren't necessarily mainstream, that could be your advantage if you project a strategy of, 3 years where you want to be the technical authority of Virginia Beach, for example. So anyways, that's a quick little.
I have a question on that. I gotta let you guys know too, I'm a chess player. I play chess every day.
Nice.
So
Okay.
yeah, that's a cool coincidence, man. And I do see how it's related to software engineering and development. But my question is, are there any F# juniors out there? Is that a thing? I've never heard of.
Well, I would say the majority of people out there are juniors, right? Junior everything, right? Junior C# developers, everything. So the short answer is Yeah, sometimes when I'm throwing my head, I was live streaming, building a chess game, I think last week, and I felt very much like a junior because there's times where I just get stuck and I'm not quite sure how to get past a certain problem, or do I need to throw away and restart. So
Mm.
yeah, but
Li- Lionel, I think the question you were asking is quite relevant, and the truth of the matter is, I don't think there are that many junior F sharp developers. I think most people who are quote unquote junior, developing in F sharp are usually already seniors in C sharp or other languages. You get what I mean? That
Mm-hmm.
said, I have seen junior F sharp developers who came from languages like Python, because F sharp and Python share a lot in similarity, right? Due to the white space, even some of the syntax is very familiar. So I would say that that's the case. And the community has been doing quite a bit to get more people interested. But as a counter argument to what Scott said is, yes, if you pick a mainstream language, you're going to have a lot of competition, but at the same time, it also influences the employers as well. So when they are looking for, developers, they are looking at the mainstream languages, even though there's a lot of competition. So yes, the mainstream languages, you have a lot of competition, but there are also a lot of opportunities as well. So it's almost like a balancing act, sort of. If someone is starting new, I can't really tell them to just jump into F sharp, because the truth of the matter is that they may not have that many opportunities. And if you're someone who is coming up, the best thing that you can get is opportunities to practice, to grow, regardless of language. In that beginning phase, is very delicate compared to when you're already experienced.
it's a
True.
double-edged sword. I would argue that if you learn F sharp, you're going to know C sharp because F sharp is .NET. Hence, .NET is a suite of languages: C sharp, F sharp, and VB.NET. And so you're still within the .NET ecosystem. You still pull in the same NuGet packages that a C sharp application will pull in. I would think that Odie would agree with me that when you learn, if because we're talking about F sharp, that you begin to observe or see things that normal developers wouldn't see because it's a different perspective of design. And I mean, again, I'm trying my hardest not to make this an F sharp episode, but your code usually or your code generally is more testable by default just because you're using a functional paradigm, and that is not true with C sharp. It's harder to make an argument for writing automated tests with C sharp compared to with F sharp when it comes to doing it for a business. And there's a whole bunch of other things. And C sharp, the latest C sharp is really F sharp light. I mean, it's adopted so many features within the last, I would argue, 5 to 6 years from F sharp. So
Wow.
yeah,
So Lionel, can you like maybe add, because I'm just meeting you for the first time. So if you can maybe introduce yourself, like what's
Yeah.
your experience been like, etc.
Sure. Yeah. So on my YouTube, I go by the name of Lionel the Builder. I've been working for a startup as a full stack dev. It's a React front end, Firebase back end, ship repair, project management app. Been working for them since November, so about 8 months now. But before that, I was freelancing. I'm a member of 100 Devs community. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. It was started by a brother who went to Yale, and then he had a dream to help 100 developers get hired with a free online bootcamp. And he's got a bunch of videos, different cohorts that he does, and I think the Discord is up to like 100,000 or something like that, and it has spawned a lot of developers out there. And when you graduate, one thing that he says is, I asked that you help 3 other people. And I said I was going to do something better, started a YouTube channel wanting to help 100 as well. So now I have a Discord community that's about 250, a school.com. And I just talk about breaking into tech, try and make some of the, esoteric topics that we know of about coding, trying to make it more transferable to the everyday, guy that's out there. Um, a year ago, I was a truck driver and I participated in a hackathon due to my homework assignment for the 100 devs was to look for a coding meetup or a hackathon. And so I went there, and that's when I got my first chance of working within a team, other than, just having the Git private repo on my portfolio projects and little ideas that I was just tinkering with. And, the connections I made there and the experience, I always say that pretty much changed my life and really inspired me to feel like I could actually do this as a career. And also, one of my lead dev from our hackathon ended up coming with me on my interview, and we both got hired by the
Oh
startup.
wow,
That's cool.
Yep.
that is awesome. That is awesome to hear. Well,
Yep. We ended
yeah.
up winning too. We won the hackathon.
Oh wow, what did you guys build?
We built a Dungeons and Dragons companion app. It was mobile. It was for
Nice.
so that instead of carrying all the different books and stuff, you could just have the app while you're playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, sweet, sweet.
Mm.
Wow, that's really great to hear. And yeah, it's really nice to hear such stories, especially people who are coming in. And to be honest, I don't really envy you guys because you came at the point where the complexity is at the maximum. Back in the day, things used to be a whole lot simpler, right? So you just create a simple website, use one simple thing, and you deploy it. So we had a bit of a lower, a should I say, a lower on ramping. But I always think about it sometimes, like if I was starting from scratch, where would I even start? Like there's just so much information, so much things out there and all of that. So, but seeing that, you've made the effort, you were able to get into the industry with even that high difficulty, that's really, really, really commendable. And I really appreciate that. And something else I also noticed that software engineering isn't really something you can teach, in the sense that is either somebody really vibes with it or they don't vibe with it at all. And if you try to force someone who doesn't really vibe with it, it's going to be like, very, very difficult. So usually when you see someone who was doing something else get into software engineering, there's something about that person that makes that person unique.
Man, for me, it's having kids.
So, so Lionel, the scope is like junior developers, and I think I'm going to go there. But right before I do, when are you going to be a senior, and what does that mean?
Man, I went through a back and forth on that. My lead developer, I didn't know he was watching my YouTube videos until he told me one time, because I would always say, I'm not calling myself a junior anymore. Half of my videos is really for entertainment, So I was just
Mhm.
kind of like, you can't take everything I say up there, as my gospel. I'm a human still. But it was during a time where I was stuck on something for a long time. And I was going through that junior struggle that y'all probably know, where juniors don't like to ask for help because it
Mm,
shows their weakness. You rather like stay up overtime all night, maybe even show up to the meeting with the awkward surprise of it not being done when you should have sent a screenshot or a message or called the lifeline, and the
mm,
senior can come and get you past that hurdle so the entire thing can move forward. And
yeah.
during my meeting for that, he said, I think that I know that you don't like calling yourself a junior. This is when I didn't call when I didn't call myself a junior. He said that. He said, I know you don't like calling yourself a junior, but I think that with that comes humility, comes being humble, admitting where you really are. And that's the best way to move forward and to do better and to, you know. So ever since then, because I didn't like calling myself a junior. I feel like that's, degrading. But then after getting in trouble, I said, yeah, I guess I will try to be humble. And really, that put me on lead code, being able to pass a technical interview with flying colors, being able to do all of the requirements that are required of a developer who doesn't call himself junior. But I also heard that like the minimum is 2 years. I'm 8 months in. I see most of the job postings, they always start at least 2 years. They usually don't say under 2 years. So that's another thing that I think about, kind of makes me a junior.
So Odie's going to disagree with me because I think we've debated this already. I think it's going to sound very familiar when I bring it up. Is I would like to say I don't think time is relevant to be a senior. Now, obviously, it's a factor because it takes time to realize anything, to realize any artifact, right? But honestly, I'll just give you a scenario of what I did, and maybe that likely doesn't mean that I was senior. But you ever hear the term "do it until you become it"?
Is that like a fake it till you make it?
Yeah, yeah. So in Cleveland, I was like, nah, I want to make senior money. Like these people, they're making like $80 an hour. I want that money, right? And I was like, how do I get that money? And the catch-22 is you got to have experience, right? But how you gonna get experience if no one hires you? And so my strategy, right? You're gonna hear that word a lot from me. Was all right. Well, they can't deny me, or it'll be more challenging for them to deny me if I get a respected certification from Microsoft, right? That's how you defend against that. You can't tell me that I don't have it, right? How many people do have it? So I end up going that channel. And the other part that I did, right, which is unintuitive, is I just moved to a different state and declared myself a senior. And the burden was on the community or on the industry to demonstrate that I wasn't. And I kind of lucked out with that. So, which no matter what, right? I'm about to try to give you game with emphasis on try. Is I sincerely believe it's harder to go from junior to senior when you work with the same group of people. Just like when you were a child, people are always going to view you by your nickname. They're always going to, they have a hard time detaching from it, right? And so sometimes you literally have to change your environment in order for people to view you a different way. And
True.
that's what I had to do. So,
I
Like they're always gonna
vehemently,
remember me as little bro.
okay,
I vehemently disagree.
cool.
But I will say there's a part of it I agree with, which is time isn't what makes you senior, right? Some people you see that call themselves senior just have one experience that they've done for 9 years. They've been doing one thing for 9 years. And that is a form of seniority, but it's in that specific thing they're doing. You can't call them a senior software engineer because they haven't experienced anything outside of that small niche that they've been working on for 9 years. So don't be intimidated when you meet people who say, I'm a senior engineer. It's like, what have you been doing? Like, what experience do you have? You know what I mean? There are people, those guys, and software engineering is a really funny field because every 5 years, it's almost like there is a refresh that happens to the technology every 5 years. So if you are someone who has 10 plus years of experience, a good chunk of it is irrelevant. I know ActionScript, but nobody uses ActionScript anymore. I know Flash, nobody uses Flash anymore. Like, you see where I'm going to with this. So when you see someone that says, oh, I have 20 years of experience, don't feel intimidated because they probably have maybe a year or two experience in something like React, for example.
Right.
That's the first aspect. Now, where I disagree vehemently with Bismonga is that there are arcs in that you see these arcs when you've been long enough in the industry, right? You see arcs that happen where the industry does something a certain kind of way, and then we switch over to a different kind of way, and then we get burnt, and then we switch back, And the people who come in when we've switched back don't realize why we were burnt in the previous one. And they will now rehash old ideas as though it's new. Like, you get what I mean? And for you to see those arcs, time has to pass, because someone says that the definition of a senior engineer is someone who has stayed long enough to see their code come back to bite them in the ass. It's then you become a senior, because it's at that point you now realize that, oh, I thought I was smart before, but yeah, this is why this is not a good idea. And what that means is that when that person who becomes a senior joins a different team, not only are they going to tell you don't do it this way, they can give you experience as to why you shouldn't do it this way. They have a depth of understanding that a new person doesn't really see, right? Especially when you come into an industry that likes complicated things like our industry, right? So as a junior, you'll be doing things because, yeah, that's what everybody does. But why are you doing it? No one knows. Yeah, we just do it because, yeah, this is the proper way to do it, right? But once you have had that whole cycle of you did something, you implemented it a certain kind of way, it came back to bite you in a specific kind of way, you learned from it, you improved your design, and then you iterated like 3, 4, 5 times. Only then can you say, I'm a senior. Now, to fall back to agree with Scott, right? There's something that happens in this industry as well, which is you get this sense of what's the word? I would say uh, um, imposter syndrome, where you may have the experience to be a senior, you may have good experience to be competent, but you don't feel that way. And the reason you don't feel that way is because anytime you deviate just a little bit from what it is you're good at, all of a sudden you feel like a baby again. Everything you do is just bad, and you're struggling, and something doesn't quite make sense, and you are writing an exam and you're failing it, and it's like, oh my god, I've been a senior for 10 years. How come is this so hard? Maybe I'm just an imposter, right? And to those people, I would say just do what Scott did. Just declare that that's what's going to happen. Like, let me finish with this. Like, I was in Nigeria, right? In Nigeria, was paid very little. I had experience, and I was, working, and I told my coworkers, I'm going to work with Microsoft one day. Like, I just had that mind. I'm just going to work for Microsoft one day. And they all laughed. I laughed as well, because it was like, oh, come on, you where are you? But what happened was, once I was able to envision that future, it became easy to plot how to get there. So my dad used to say, any future that isn't connected to what you're doing today doesn't exist. Right. So from that perspective, right, I said, okay, if I'm going to work in Microsoft, what do I need to do? Start following Microsoft people on Twitter, right? I followed a few guys, and next thing, before you know what's happening, I became popular enough that Microsoft employees started following me as well. So things started to feed back on themselves. Before I got a call, worked in a Swiss company, worked on databases, before getting a call to Amazon and working with, different companies. So the point is, you are never going to feel like a senior, right? It's not going to happen. You're going to, as a senior, I still make mistakes till tomorrow. You have to have that confidence, right, to state your ideas and even push back if a quote unquote senior pushes back on it. Because sometimes you may have the right idea, and just because they are senior, they can't see outside of their niche because they've spent so much time working on it. I'll give you one final example. And I know I'm talking too much, but we were working on a huge project, massive project, and we were having problems processing terabytes of data through a database, and it was taking forever. And we kept struggling with this thing, trying stored procedures, trying advanced techniques, until someone who wasn't really a developer like that came and told us, hey, why don't you guys just use flat files? Just create a file and store the information in it. Why are you using a database? And we scoffed at the guy because, we are the seniors, quote unquote. And it turns out that the guy was right. Flat files are like, orders of magnitudes faster than, databases. Of course, the guy couldn't implement the things we needed to implement, but his fresh perspective was the game changer in that situation. So these are things to think about. If I was to go back in time and talk to myself, these are the things I would tell myself is you're never going to feel like I've arrived, I know it now. It's never going to happen. You're always going to feel inadequate, but have the confidence to say, okay, I don't know everything, but this thing I really understand it and I'm good at it. So yeah.
Right. Thanks. Valuable insight there. Well, can I ask you, each of you, how long were you a junior, and were you ever a junior then? And what day, would you say you
Uh,
made that transition?
I mean, I'm sure there's people on Twitter that still say I'm a junior, right? So, like, I would say, let me give a little bit of background. So, I started as a co-op back in Cleveland. I did 3 years as a co-op, and then once I graduated the university, I did 3 years as a junior developer. But everybody knew me as a junior developer, right? And maybe that's just unique to me, right? So no matter how hard I would study in the evenings and have my own separate projects, and then introduce things that I've learned that quote unquote the senior developers weren't really familiar with, it didn't matter. I was still junior. And so it wasn't until I made my declaration that I was going to get a certain Microsoft certification, and that I got to the level where I finally took that certification. I bombed it. Well, I didn't bomb it. I did well in everything except for the deployment section. And that section alone, which I really didn't take seriously, caused me to fail. But I had so much confidence. When you start interviewing for a position as a engineer or developer, and you know more about the technology than the person interviewing you, that means something. It may not mean you're a senior, but it means you know your ish, right?
Right.
It wasn't until I moved down to Florida and then started networking and joining the various user groups down here that people started thinking I was really smart. But back home in Cleveland, people just knew I was a junior developer, and that reputation, that first impression, that's like glue. It's hard to get people to change their perspective of you, right? Not saying that it's
Graduate you.
impossible, but
Yeah.
once people first meet you and once you make your mistakes that you make, people hold on to that, right? Ask Mike Tyson. So, make long story short, it wasn't until, and I'm going to answer your question, it wasn't until maybe after my first contract, which lasted a year, that I genuinely felt respected as a professional doing senior type work. That might not be reality, but that was my belief system.
Okay.
Interesting. For me, ooh, okay. So I was one of those. Um, I started this whole thing when I was 19. I think it was 18. 17, 18 was when I started coding. So I've always been a quote unquote junior, right? Even in, from even perspective, even if I knew more than people who were senior, they wouldn't just hire a 21-year-old and make him a senior. That just didn't feel right, especially where I'm from in Nigeria. So I have had that, shadow over my career for the longest time. And the only time I was able to break out of it was when, as a junior, I was leading projects with seniors in it. Right. So it was at that point they were like, you know what, we have to promote this guy. So when I was in, I think, when I was in the company, I got promoted 6 times in 4 years because of the amount of competence I was able to demonstrate. And that competence came from curiosity and side projects. So that's something that I would tell a lot of junior developers is have a side project you're doing And people say, oh, how do I break the whole experience? Oh, you need this amount of experience to start working here. But to work, you need experience. The way to break that is you can get experience without working. And that's from
Right.
side project, right? So getting side projects, working on side projects, seeing the full picture is what makes you move into senior very quickly. And in my own case was when I worked with some senior devs on a project, we delivered the project. So there was some level of attribution that was done that, okay, this guy can play among the big boys, quote unquote, right? And then after that, because there's also a rub that happens when you work with very good senior developers, you get a rub from them that improves you to their level, sort of. And then once I got that, I now started leading teams where I was now helping other developers. It was at that point that I made quote unquote the transition to senior developer. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
the point where you can help others, whether onboard into a team, get things done, you can
Hmm.
unblock other people. It's at that point you become a senior. That's
Right.
what I think. Yeah.
Okay.
This can. I'll try not to beat a dead horse, but I'm not really a firm believer that you require coworkers or a job in general to tell you that you're a senior. For example, something that I'm a huge fan of, which I don't really do that much anymore, is pledge allegiance to the industry over your employer, meaning document your journey, maintain a technical journal, aka also known as blog, right? Um, record what you've learned or your struggles on like a YouTube channel. Ask question or try to set a goal on Stack Overflow to ask so many questions that people deem valuable or answer so many questions that people appreciate. All this is community centric.
Hmm.
Volunteer to give presentations at your local user groups. And all this is more focused on the industry and not necessarily your peer coworkers at some mediocre, should I say, organization. So I've always been
Hmm.
a fan of like, damn, an employer. Like, I understand. I'm thankful that they gave me opportunity, but that's not who I pledge allegiance to. My allegiance is to the industry. I'm going to be a servant of my industry, and they're going to recognize me once I demonstrate why I deserve it.
Right.
So
That makes sense because it is very hard to earn that promotion. Like no matter how good you do within the team that initially gave you your first chance, they're
yeah.
like, yeah, I could definitely at least see that.
Yes, you go the strategy of being a servant of the industry, you'll develop way more relationships in the industry, I would argue, than you would at your mediocre company, aka your
Hmm.
employer.
I
So
Hmm.
I kind of disagree and kind of
okay,
agree. So, but let me tell you where I disagree. I disagree because if you're a solo developer, there's a good chance that your bad habits will reinforce themselves, right? And when, with respect to the industry, no one is going into details on specific projects. We're just talking about concepts on that level, right? When you're networking with outsiders and all of that. But when you're working with someone on a project, then, it's almost like it breaks down to the specifics to it. And like I said, if you don't have that pushback, there's a good chance that your bad ideas would keep reinforcing themselves. So having this having that recognition in your place of work. When I say recognition here, I'm not talking about like official stamp saying you are now promoted to senior. No, none of that, right? It has more to do with how do the team members see you. It's almost like the difference between a leader and a ruler. With a ruler, power is ascribed to the ruler, but with a leader, the people ascribe that to who their leader is. You get what I mean?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's why I'm saying that. And this is a pro tip. Hold on, this is a pro tip for if you want to get promoted. Very easy. Just look at what the person who is on that level is doing, and then promote yourself and start
Doing what they
operating at
do.
that level. Yeah, you get promoted to the level you're already operating at, not it's not like you are operating at this level and they say, oh, we need to promote him, he's doing really well, and they promote you. No, it's that you're already operating at that level and they're like, let's make the what he's already doing match what we say he's doing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, and once you start operating at that level, you now start to even see, oh, these are the areas that I'm lacking in. Except that now you don't have the downside of people trying to say, oh, you're supposed to be a senior engineer, but you're not able to do X, Y, Z. You get what I mean? So it gives you a
Right.
lot of flexibility. If you're stretching out and doing things that are one step ahead of you, you get commended for it, as opposed to you get promoted and you're not adequate. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Disagree. So here's the thing, right? Is
Yeah.
I mean, I'm beating a dead horse with this. At your job, my experience has showed me that you always have to ask permission to demonstrate how awesome you could be. I don't like that, right? They will always, the default answer for any human being in general, with emphasis on default, is no. When you say no, there's a high likelihood that you're not introducing risk. Period. We're the majority of us are wired that way. We just say no, right? We don't even have to think. We just say no. We say yes, we introduce risk. That applies to almost everything, right? So you can still get feedback on, if we're talking about code. I understand that a senior developer isn't just about coding, right? I have a habit of when I'm writing code, and like it's a really productive habit, is just allocate 1 hour in the morning, and if you're really on it, 1 hour in the evening, every day, 7 days a week, 365, of just focusing on a project. And what is it, Darren Howard, I think it's the author of The Compound Effect. That stuff builds up.
Mm-hmm.
Hence Beach Mobile
Mm-hmm.
that I built, whatever. So with that said, throw some screenshots of the code that you're writing during your morning 1 hour session and post it, right? They're going to tell you what you effed up on, right? Odie, he posted a screenshot, he posted a screenshot of his code, and he got some massive feedback. Not saying that his code was horrible, but people started interrogating him on why he didn't use certain things that were already built into the library. But
Mm-hmm.
make long story short, you're going to get mentoring as long as you put yourself out there and you genuinely show interest of, this is the objective that I'm trying to get to, and I really appreciate feedback. There's so much more feedback that you're going to get from the industry than you're going to get from your employer. Your employer is risk adverse.
Right.
Industry is a community of people that are not doing it for the money. They're doing it
True.
because they're genuinely interested, which is another argument for F sharp. When you pick your language, you pick your community, which ultimately
Mm-hmm.
results in relationships that you can maintain.
Right.
True.
So your ceiling is just higher industry wide, worldwide, outside of your occupation wide. You're I never thought about that for real, that you're technically holding two positions. You have a position at your company, and then you have your position in the universe as a developer that you say you are, and you can get promoted in both ways, even though that second one, there's no paycheck attached yet. There's a rank there too, still, or like, a status that you have the ability to go for it, pretty much go for the
There's been a
sky
couple.
is.
There's been a couple times where, look, my authority gets questioned at times. Okay, sometimes I don't think my authority would get questioned if I look like somebody else, but I get challenged sometimes when I don't think I should be for certain things. And so, no, we don't think so. What makes you think that? Well, I published a blog post on it. Here's a link. This describes exactly the shortcomings that I ran into, that I decided to document so that you, my coworker, doesn't have to run into this. Again, this is for the industry. Again, when you start contributing or making contributions to the industry, it actually can help you at your job, because regardless of your job, you are slowly climbing the ladder, if not being the authority figure, having already touched on something that your job didn't employ you to do, but because you're doing it as a practice with as a software engineer, you already have insight, right? And that's happened to me a couple of times where it's like, well, why can't we? Well, look, go to bismonger.com or .net, whatever. I publish an article right here that explains what you're going to run into, or at least what I ran into. And feel free to help me understand what I could have done differently. But I've already been there, done that. Here you go. Here's the link. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. I also, like you said, I also see that aspect of being, where do I sit in the industry as being very important. And one of the good things about our industry is that if you are going the wrong way, you are going to get checked very, very quickly. But don't see it as a bad thing. Don't see it as a bad thing, right? It's actually a good thing, because what that means is that you can iterate faster, you can drop bad habits quicker, and that whole cycle of getting to become senior shortens when you start interacting with other people in the industry. So, for example, my first experience with it was when there was a programming competition. I was still in school at the time. So I went for a programming competition, and that was the first time I got to talk with the quote unquote industry. And yeah, I was blown away. It was the first time I heard of regex, because up until that point, I was manipulating strings with, so on and so forth, until someone was like, just use regex. I was like, what the hell is that? And, these are things that you can't really get if you're working in a company and you're working on specific problems that never need regex, for example. You wouldn't really know that. And, getting in the industry is very, very important, like he said. So I agree with him there. Like, your role in the industry is also becoming even more important, because there are ethics involved. As a developer, there are certain things your company might want you to do. For example, they might tell you don't hash passwords, and as a member of the community, it's up to you to say, no, I can't allow this. You have to hash passwords, because it's the wrong thing to do, to store passwords in plain text and all of that.
Right.
So you have a duty to both your employer, but also a duty to the industry as well.
all right. So, if it's okay with you, Lionel, I would like to cascade, for lack of a better term, to a different topic, right? Unless you have feedback or a response to Odie or myself.
Oh, no, we could keep it moving.
All right. So, Lionel, like, what is the state of junior developers in the tech industry right now? Well, it was May 30th right now, 2024. I don't know what today's day is, but like
29th.
what 29th? Okay. What is it like being a junior developer, whether you're employed or not?
From my perspective, it's a lot of struggle out there, guys. It's a lot of struggle for the new guys. There's a lot of fear in the market. There's a lot of enthusiasm. Everyone wants to break into tech. I think it was maybe COVID that sparked that. What if I could just work remotely? What if I could just build whatever I want to build? What if I could have a cool, there's so many day in the life videos. It's like made it seem like software development is nothing but free sushi and the gym. And it's a lot of people in there getting for a rude awakening, not only trying to learn, like knowing what to learn. There's a lot of boot camps out there, probably taking a little bit of advantage of that, promising people jobs, promising people that, if they pay this amount of money and dedicate this amount of time, that they'll be able to, without any networking, just get your resume and find a job on LinkedIn or Indeed. So there's a lot of people going through that struggle. Kind of, I would say the majority of juniors are in that point of wanting to be a developer, wanting to be a hired working on projects person, and maybe even completed a boot camp, know enough HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's what most people learn right off the bat to start building. It's either that or Python seem to be like the two choices. And then you grab a framework either Angular, Next.js, React. That is the path that the majority of people who I meet every day in my Discord, because I make videos geared towards that community, because there's only so many. If in my perspective, in my mind, I'm here to help the guys behind me. Like I feel like I'm most valuable to reach back and pull at least to where now you're either freelancing, you have a portfolio with some projects, at least you're able to build, something, um, do submitting pull requests and stuff like that, getting them to at least that point where you can say you're a developer, and then also trying to motivate them what I feel like is the proper way to do it, which would be networking. Like how I went to a conference. It seems like I was lucky to latch onto that part and to go do it. I went to tech conferences and, knowing nothing, just having my bag and feeling like a poser, having a couple portfolio projects. I went to a whole tech conference, but then felt like that helped me take on that persona a bit quicker because I put myself physically there. One of the messages that I spread to people is that in your town, I know not all around the world, like if you have a bit of people in your town, usually there's a place where the developers are, and you need to put yourself physically there. Even if all you have is aspiration, still you'll be better off than the people who are just YouTube tutorial following. Y'all know they call it tutorial hell. And then applying for jobs. There's people who apply for 20 jobs a day and everything's getting denied.
I was
And
one of them.
it's just getting denied after denied after denied. Every opportunity I have received was from a handshake at some point, or somebody meeting me somehow. I've passed the like sniff test and they've been willing to give me a chance based off of, meeting them. All of the stuff that I tried where I'm just a application, I haven't really got much of a chance in that realm. Not yet, at least. Maybe I don't have the right certifications or the right blogs and leveled myself up in the industry in that sense. But here in Virginia Beach, I've made a name for myself as a go-getter. Like if there is a problem, like you can trust me that I'm at least not going to give up and not panic. Like I will figure out how to move forward. I forgot what the question was.
I think you answered it. It was the state of junior developers in today within the industry.
I
So,
think you
Sorry,
give
got a little rambly there.
no, it's fine. I think you give very solid advice, which is put yourself physically there in those situations, right? My first job was okay. So let me tell you how I got into the industry. So my first job, I was this kid that came out of school. While I was in school, I had done so many projects. So it wasn't like I was completely green. I had built many websites with PHP at the time. So I was pretty competent with PHP, but I couldn't get a job. I would apply. I remember even taking a HTML test where I scored 100 over 100 and they were completely blown away. But by the time I got to the point to take the job, the salary offer was so small, so I couldn't take that job and I was defeated. And I remember Microsoft was organizing a conference in Lagos, Nigeria. So I went for the Microsoft conference. I just sat down there and they were asking questions, right, about like C sharp and all of that stuff. And if you answered correctly, you got a chance to win a mouse and a USB flash drive. And the mouse was this Arc mouse, very fancy mouse like that. I was so locked in. I was like, I'm going to win both the mouse and the flash drive. And there I started, having conversations. I was even arguing with a particular guy, not knowing. So I was arguing with him. I was telling him that PHP was better than ASP.NET. And we entered this whole argument and it went so deep, right? Like he would go into very niche reasons why ASP.NET was better. I would go into niche reasons why it's not and all of that. And after that conversation, he asked me, where do you work? I said, I don't work anywhere. I tried to get a job. It didn't work out. And he was like, and I told him, oh, I went to this place and this is how much they offered me. And he was like, really? come work for me. I'll double the amount, and and that was how I got my first job for real.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
what I didn't also know was that the person I was sparring with was like the top person on Stack Overflow. Like, he was good. So,
Wow.
it's things like this. So that's why what you said was very, very solid advice. Like, you have to put yourself out there. You get opportunities to network with people. Those relationships are very, very important in the long run, especially as you grow in the industry and things like that.
Mm.
Lionel, you think your status would be different if you chose a different stack as a junior developer?
Possibly. I think so. Yeah, because I kind of do see what you guys mean about it being flooded, and about I feel like I might have a junior stack. You know what I mean? Like, that's what you do. Like, you learn HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you start writing React components, and there's so many different, it works perfectly with Firebase or Superbase, whatever you need. It's like the easiest, you know, there's the most information, most tutorials on this stuff, and it's kind of what everybody's doing. So I did connect to that when you said earlier, and I just imagined being it's easier to be a big fish in a smaller pond. Like, man, how am I ever going to stand out writing React components and managing state, or all of the stuff that everybody does, and going for the jobs that everybody goes for.
So I'm just going to be really blunt. Uh, you can keep yourself private, Odie. I don't know, but like F sharp, I never. So 10 years ago, I didn't realize that I could make 115, 120, $125 an hour writing F sharp code, but I have, right?
Mm.
And it's exactly what you said, being a big fish in a small pond, and recognizing like, okay, believe it or not, the United States of America, like, they're not leading edge, right? Over in these European countries, they use Scala, they use F sharp, they probably use Clojure, right? Here in the States, nah, we're straight Java, C sharp, maybe Ruby back in the day. They probably still do it. But again, I mean, you're kind of like reinforcing what I was saying, is strategically saying, what space can I dominate in the state of Florida, or a certain region of the states where a product was already created, and it was sold, and it was successful because of a really productive language. Maybe I should position myself so that they can hire me and pay me the big bucks to maintain it. Like, it's like game theory, man. It's strategy. So yeah, I was curious.
Man, I'm gonna have to look up some F sharp stuff after this.
You know how they say once you go black, you never go back?
That's how it is with F sharp.
I'm unaware of any programmer that knew C sharp, decided to mess around with F sharp, and invested, let's say, a minimum of 6 to 8 weeks, and say, nah, I'm good with C sharp. I never, ever, ever. It's always the first language to go to. And usually they don't go to it because the employer won't let them. So that's all. I'm done tooting F sharp again.
Yeah. So the F sharp thing, what makes F sharp special? There are things that make F sharp special, but that's not where the most benefit is. Where the most benefit is that F sharp is from a different family of languages. So all the languages you've used, C sharp, JavaScript, Java, they are all part of the C family of languages. They have their strengths, but they also have their weaknesses as well. F sharp belongs to the ML family of languages. So Haskell is in that family, Elixir is in that family, Gleam is in that family.
Quick question: what does ML stand for? This is a junior developer episode.
Machine learning?
No. Let me hurry up and look it up real fast.
It's I think modeling language or something like that. ML languages are so there's machine learning, then there's ML as a language family,
Meta language.
meta language thing. And what makes that language really good is that you aren't writing what should happen. You are describing the problem, and those are see, once your brain switches over, like switching back is very difficult because right now when you're writing code, you're writing oh, do this if, then do this, then when,
Imperative.
then right, in an imperative style. But once you start writing in a functional style, you are saying do this, like this is connected to this, and this connects to this, and this connects to this,
Like
and
chess.
like chess, exactly. These are the
It's plug and play.
dependencies, and it's plug and play, exactly. And you're like
But you're writing
configuring.
the rules of, so you're basically writing the rules of the program in a way, or the
Correct.
functionality, the structure on a deeper level than
Correct.
describing the laws.
It's called domain modeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a book by Scott Blashin called Domain Modeling Made Functional. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Domain modeling.
Yeah.
We had them on our show.
I have to subscribe.
No, we'll put the recommendations at the end of this episode.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So yeah, so the point I was trying to make with this was it's not, yeah, F sharp is a very good ML language, but it's not the only ML language. There are other ML languages as well. And in fact, it's even one of the reasons why you've heard of Rust, right? Rust is gaining so much popularity because Rust takes a lot of those ML concepts and starts with a functional first approach as opposed to an imperative first approach when writing code. So yeah, that's so you hear a lot of new languages coming out, a lot of new features in C sharp coming out that people are so hype about. All those things have been in F sharp 1, F sharp 2, like almost 10 years ago, because it's a completely different. So here's what happened. Sorry for going on this rant, but here's what happened. Computers changed, right? So in the past, we were only writing direct desktop applications where we were manipulating memory, and that was it, right? But we've entered this distributed world with the internet where you are transferring data to and fro the wire, you're dealing with services, you're dealing with protocols and things like that. And that paradigm that we used in the past of manipulating memory, that doesn't fly in the cloud. So a paradigm that deals with data transformation, data pipelines, and all those kind of things, that is better suited for the world we live in today. So a lot of those languages are trying to gain those features and essentially like shift towards this new world that we live in. So yeah, you should not just F sharp. So F sharp, Haskell, there's this OCaml. F sharp and OCaml are very similar. OCaml is like that, and a few other languages.
all right.
Because
So
that's the way that it's going anyway.
no,
That's exactly. So it's
No.
like yes, it is. The industry is moving in that direction. For real. The industry is moving in that direction. So F sharp is just one of them. Kotlin is another example of something that is moving towards a functional language as well.
all right. So Lionel, we talked about tech, okay, but the original vision for tech conception was to discuss the business of software development. Okay. For someone aspiring, I would assume, to be a senior developer, not everything is about tech. It's about planning. Okay. And so, with that said, another book I'm going to recommend, and we'll show it at the end of this episode through Odie's amazing editing skills. I don't even think Odie even knows this book, but this is one of the books that has transformed my career. I get respect because of this book, right? It's called Writing Software by Javal Lowy, spelled with the R, Rightting. Not only do we design software solutions, but we also design the development effort, aka the software project itself. We don't do a big bang, da-da, all developers, all development teams, ready, set, go. Everybody, pound those keyboards. No, we have a methodical, well thought out way of basically orchestrating the development effort. What work could be done in series? What work could be done in parallel? What are the dependencies in order to deliver a feature? If a feature is a set of capabilities, right? What are the capabilities that, well, we can realize this feature? And again, everything's about dependencies. Each dependency has a unique identifier so that we can have a spreadsheet, and then we can have architectural diagrams, and everything is like chess. Everything relates to one another, in which we can have a very good view, and we could plan for how this project is going to be delivered. Having a spreadsheet of who are the teams, what are the features, who are the point of contact, everything. That book really upped my game, especially as a software architect. So again, it's not just about tech when you want to graduate to a higher pay scale. It's also about basically being able to lead, and in order to lead, usually people have to respect your plan. So that's it.
So the knowledge and skill of your system design is what I'm pretty much getting out of that. Like you're
designing the development effort.
So let me add to that. So what he's saying is that programming is a team sport, right? As much as we like to think it's an individual thing, I have my skills, but at the end of the day, it does happen, don't get me wrong, but there's rarely anything of significance done in programming that's done by a single person. It's usually done with a team. And and just like with every other team sport, you can have a team that has all skilled developers, all skilled players, and a different team who everybody is sort of average, killing it because they all understand each other. They know how to bounce off each other's strengths and weaknesses, and they know how to move in sync and things like that, right? So what Scott is saying is that it's not enough to know the skills. You also need to understand the dynamics of both the politics is part of it, but also how do we organize ourselves such that we can efficiently deliver, right? And what strategies do we use? Do we say, okay, 3 people work on the front end and 2 people work on the back end? Do we even build the back end first, or do we build the front end first? Like, there's so much, should I say, meta problem solving involved in getting a team of guys together to work on something that that goes beyond just, okay, I know how to use React, I know how to use Svelte, or whatever the case may be. Yeah. So for example, I can give you one advice for free. So for example, if you're working alone, right, you use the best tool for the job. But if you're working with people, you use the tool that everybody understands the most. Not the best tool for the job, because the best tool for the job will only have 1 or 2 people productive, and the rest will just be stepping on top of each other, right? But if there's a tool, even if that tool is JavaScript, but all of us understand it, all of us have very good appreciation of how to use it, and we're all good in that particular way, we can achieve more, even though JavaScript is a slow language, and I get all that. But you see where I'm going to with this. There are other things involved in becoming an experienced software engineer that have nothing to do with the coding. For example, even being able to write is very critical. Being able to write technical documentation. You have an idea in your brain, it's still an idea in your brain, but for you to communicate it in a very clean technical way to your coworkers is a very important skill that you need to develop if you want to climb higher, right? And the higher you go, so if you work in Fang, for example, it becomes even more important than the technical skill itself, because you're dealing with thousands of teams. There are so many communication gaps, and a lot of things are happening. So these are things that you don't really see coming up as a junior developer, because it's all about getting the technical skills, but those are equally as important as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Should we close? Is there anything you want to respond
You wanted
to?
to say something. Hold on, I have to hear what you wanted to say. You wanted to say something, Scott. Go ahead and say it.
I didn't have anything. I was expecting Lionel to respond or at least
I was
dispute anything that we say.
I was expecting that. I disagree.
No, no.
But man, I wish I was recording this. My guys need to see this. I'm gonna have to
You could do a
share it
reaction
to the
video.
group. Okay,
Yeah,
true,
yeah,
true.
that works too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have any questions? Anything you would like to ask? I don't know.
Man, we covered a lot. We really did. I
Yeah.
definitely need I wrote down the first book that you said. I didn't write down the second one because you said it's gonna be in the
Writing
description.
software by Javal Lowy. Yeah, we'll send it to you or we'll post it on this episode.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really going to step out of my comfort zone here. I've been studying a lot more with the goal of, gaining the skills, how I explained earlier. But thank you
Yeah.
for opening up my mind to more of the quarterbacking,
Exactly.
of it all, of the entire thing. Like that's a higher up, another skill to aim for, because especially I have the coding group. I got a bunch of juniors. We have open source projects that we're starting to build, and I noticed like sometimes people move, sometimes they don't. No one's really stepping up, raising their hand, calling the meetings and saying, okay guys, this is what we're gonna do. I kind of just, as the leader, I kind of just like, hey, submit the PR, I'll check it out, whatever you guys want to add, let me know. And that may not be the right way to go about it. I may need to call in the troops, huddle up guys, here's how we're gonna do this, and here's what we're gonna aim for. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
thank you.
I've had a mentor. I'll do a shout out, Greg Leonardo. He says, Scott, you want to make more money? You got to become a politician. Right. And what that meant was if you want to graduate in a pay scale as a developer, you have to position yourself to start making decisions and start developing relationships. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Versus how many tickets can I close by
versus
the end of the clock.
JavaScript or whatever NuGet package. Like,
True.
so I don't think I have anything else to add. Let me go back. Yeah, so I think maybe, and I'll speak for myself that I do appreciate the mentors that I've had, and I'll do a shout out: Greg Leonardo, Rick Anderson, my late mentor, John Dennis Amler, and I'm sure that there are some other people that have contributed, George McCormick, and without those people, I would probably be 7 to 8 years behind where I'm at right now in my profession. So I really appreciate people that they saw that spark in me and they helped develop it into a flame or a raging fire. So I appreciate it. That's it.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. I think another thing too is learning to pay it forward. There's this thing we do in F Sharp called the F Sharp Mentorship Program, where you are paired with the community. It's a community-driven effort. So you are paired with a community member, and what the person does is they pick one aspect of F Sharp and they teach you how to do it. And the only payment is you be part of the program and also teach others as well. Essentially pass it along. So I think that's a good mindset to have, especially when you are talking about your Discord channel and having junior developers helping them. Something you also don't see is that the more you help, the better you actually get, because they are going to challenge your assumptions of the things you think you know. And also you teaching it is a way to crystallize the knowledge you already have. So yeah, I commend you for that. And anybody who wants to learn and improve, one of the good approaches to do is to teach it, right? Whether a YouTube video on Discord or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I commend you for that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're done.
Yeah, we're done. So you want to give us the closing, Scott? Like,
subscribe, leave a comment, roast me for anything that I said that is just totally dead wrong. Praise Odie for the insight that he's brought to this episode. Check out Lionel's channel. It's called Lionel the Builder. Lionel or Lionel? Why does that sound like Charlie Brown? Who's
Is
Lionel?
is
Is there a character named Lionel?
Lionel? I used to get the Thundercats.
Who's the one with the blankie?
Oh
on
yeah,
Charlie
yeah.
Brown?
Yep, there's the Lionel.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I think
it's
I said your name 3 different ways in this episode, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, subscribe, leave a comment, and especially, I know it has to be hard out there because I think junior developers are expected to have senior experience,
Yeah.
and senior developers that have mortgages, a complaining wife, they're taking pay cuts and taking more junior level jobs just to have some income versus nothing right now. The market is horrible, dude. So yeah, maybe that's another episode, but
Yeah, we could talk on another episode on like maybe how to improve your odds of getting hired and things, because there's a lot of depth in that as well. Like what can you do, especially in a market like this that's so crazy right now.
We gotta do a part 2.
all right, go to Lionel's channel. He has way more
Yay.
subscribers than we do. And that's it. I don't have anything else. Oh, do you want to say anything else?
No, that's all. So ending the recording.
Lionel.
Nope. Thanks guys, and I'll see y'all in part 2. Peace.
Peace. Yay. All right.